Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to T&M Coaching Unplugged and Zoran Todorovic Interconnected podcast, the space when we elevate your thoughts, we inspire you to think in a different way, we expand your perspectives and invite you to the journey of transformation and creation. And this time around, we're going to have a deep dive into leadership. And specifically, we'll be talking about how can we navigate complexity as a leadership challenge. And I know that a lot of leaders, people who are working in businesses, do understand that our world is getting more and more complicated and more complex. And the leaders have to rise to that challenge of being able to navigate this complexity and take it as a leadership challenge. So we're going to explore this into the details. And today I have my wonderful collaborator and co-creator that I knew for a very long time, who's a very powerful executive coach, facilitator, leadership trainer, and lecturer, Adriana Sternat. She has a great passion for working with organizations, especially team coaching. This is something that she really loves and enjoys, bringing this enlightenment to the teams. This team coaching passion is grounded in her 15 years of playing in a corporate arena. She has managed the high-performing team herself in the field of marketing, operations, communication, and organizational development. She's also extremely curious, always willing to learn more, always willing to expand our horizons, always at the cutting edge to what is the leadership theory that needs to be applicable to nowadays challenges. Sometimes in the personal development industry and also in leadership industry, we tend to repeat same things again and again and again. And what I love about Adriana is that she always brings this new, fresh perspective when she is coaching and training people how to connect personal growth and business performance and how to help executives, teams, organizations transform the leaders for the best possible performance going forward. She's also a lecturer and she specializes in leadership, organizational development, strategic HR, and so on and so forth. She's a wonderful human being and I'm so grateful and happy to have her on our podcast today. So, Adriana, welcome.
Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah. So, this navigating complexity is a leadership challenge. How did you came to explore it, look into it? What inspired you to begin considering this topic and then teaching and coaching people around it?
So when I think about what inspired me, I think it's rooted in my management experience. Like it started already in the times when I used to work in a corporate environment in a role of the leader and just simply facing the challenges of creating and building sustainable businesses. And then another 15 years and becoming an external partner in organizational development. And again, facing the conversations around what is the core of leadership challenges in today's world. And again, finding out that one of the biggest challenges is, our willingness to unlearn and willingness to let go of what we know and face the new with new ways, tools, mindsets, and whatever that means.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one because we're all kind of educated in school and trained to believe certain things, to learn certain things, and we come into our career, so to say, ready to tackle the world, ready to apply everything that we learn. And then, as you said beautifully, which is the comedy of life, the moment comes we need to unlearn what we already know. Isn't that funny?
I don't know if it's funny. I don't think it's funny the moment when you face, I used to be called a certificate collector. I mean, even your introduction, like schools and learns and badges and diplomas, and then suddenly all the effort that you put into learning, it's like, it doesn't count anymore. I mean, it's not that simple, of course, but yeah, it's fascinating. It is one of my fascination. And when we talk specifically about complexity, I think my passion is rooted in collaboration. And literally, my curiosity is mostly around how can people work together more effectively in collaboration. Complexity is about collaboration. Complexity is about looking together, listening together, observing together, sense-making together. And so I think this acknowledgement that you cannot learn alone, that you cannot see alone, that, like when the knowledge and when your mind, worldview, and then your ideas about how the world or the business works are outdated, you just simply cannot do it alone. And so leadership challenges and personal challenges that come with this is what triggers my curiosity most.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that you mentioned collaboration, because I personally have a very interesting relationship with collaboration. If I look into my own organization where I'm leading, and I'm also looking into the organizations that I'm coaching or training other people to lead, I always find collaborations that such an interesting topic, because on a certain level, I love collaboration. I think it's the essential part of what you said, the tool that we can use to navigate the complexity. But at the same time, I find it really messy. Do you?
Yes and no. Yeah, it can be messy. And I think having a conversation about what does complexity mean for business and for us is a conversation around collaboration, and is a conversation about distinguishing, messy from structured, and distinguishing complicated from complex, and knowing how to create environments to bring enough structure into our conversations, to work with the environment, to work with the messiness, and find our way through, so that we can move towards our vision in a most effective and most fruitful way.
So you do agree that there is an element of chaotic mess? I mean, the chaotic part of the collaboration.
Absolutely. And it's also necessary, like making friends with messy environments is necessary. Like building your capacity to be in a messy is actually an essential capability or essential capacity, like in order to be able to work with complexity. Like living the world today is kind of like finding your way through new. So finding your way through the messiness of the new, and being humans as we are, it's literally, we have to be able to somehow make friends with this messiness.
Because the essence is a creative energy, isn't it? I mean, if there is no, kind of chaotic messiness in collaboration, there is no creativity. So I love it as well. But, some people that I coach and train, they always report, I would love to collaborate, but how do we do this in an organized and structured way?
Yeah. And this is, there are some frameworks and methods that we are teaching in this world of exploring and complexity. And the model that we called a chaotic field, the space between chaos and order, in which we are actually create enough structure, like to hold the messiness of us finding solutions for the challenges that we are facing. So yeah, messy is part of it.
Mess is part of it, and it's a good part of it. I just wanted to address it because I saw it, through many workshops, that people will, love the concept, but then they subconsciously complain about that reality. So you said that the essential way of us to be able to navigate complexity as a leadership challenge is to understand and move through the collaboration, right? So collaborative learning, collaboration within team becomes very important skill that we have to understand and use.
Yes. And, collaboration is a very broad term. Part of collaboration is the systems that we are using, like the processes that we are building and how we show up as humans. So in this area of exploring our relationship and how to work with complexity, so collaboration is the arena. Like the first essential thing is like you cannot do it alone, because the nature of complexity is unpredictability. So we need to look together, we need to listen together, we need to make decisions together, think together, sense make together. So collaboration is part of it. And when we just use this word, like collaboration, it's really so broad. So if you want to think about specifically, like this is the week, collaboration is the environment for us to address complexity. And there are many parts of and many lenses in how we can look into our collaboration. My specific interest, of course, all of the elements are relevant, but my specific interest evolves around conversation as a tool.
All right.
Like conversation as a tool, and knowing, like we started our conversation today, like we are addressing navigating complexity as a leadership challenge. And when I say leader, I mean people who are leading the organization through this. So like when, as a leader, you sit down and think about, okay, so how do I lead? And what capacities do I need? And what skills and what tools do I need? Mm-hmm. The way we are leading and the way we are figuring out our ways is in conversation, in communication, in conversation. So knowing how to create space for an intentional conversation that is designed to explore a certain environment in a way that embraces the nature of complexity is a leadership skill. So, and it is literally about creating environments to help people speak up authentically, like say what they mean. And also not just about speaking up, but also in creating a process and an environment that will listen together, like specifically for what's new. And so in this sense, like we talk about everything that collaboration is, and then Zoom is specifically into conversation as a tool, because today there is so much lost potential and so many lost opportunities for us to work towards success in conversations hijacked by intention and people not being able to speak up, or us not being able to listen together. I know, and you stop me, Zoran, I love this topic.
No, I will stop you. I'm learning. Go ahead. So much lost potential. I completely and totally agree that it's so much lost potential in conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Literally, like when we start workshops around complexity and we start working, like it might be in the capacity of a coach, in the capacity of a trainer, or in the capacity of a facilitator. When we start conversations around collaboration and, like when I ask, okay, so what is the essential, like tool? Meetings. So if I ask you, have you ever been in a meeting that, like that lasted longer than you wanted it? Or that you were not really sure why you were there? Or that it ended and you had no idea, you were just like, what just happened? Like, well, what am I supposed to do with it? Like, everyone says yes.
Yes, exactly.
Whoever is listening, ask yourself, we all have those experiences. Mm-hmm. So, so how do we become more intentional around designing our conversations for success? Mm-hmm. And, conversation is a beautiful tool. It's amazing to have a nice, unrestricted, free-flow conversation with our friends. I mean, it's beautiful. And when it's about work, when we want to solve a problem, when we want to create a value for the world, and there's huge potential in, okay, so let's become a little bit more intentional about how are we going to do
And how do we do that? I mean, for the people who are listening to this and they're saying, we agree, especially when it comes to the meeting quality and our communication within our teams, how we gel together, how we make decisions and choices, how we discuss problems, how we brainstorm on the solutions, how we address the challenges. All of that is what you said, part of communication that helps us navigate to complexity. But you mentioned again and again and again and again one term that I really want to highlight, which is intentional communication, intentional space. So for the new and young leaders who listen to this, how do they do this? How do you set it up in a way that it really works?
Yeah. So it starts with a purpose. It starts with, and when I say purpose, like we go in different places when we talk about purpose today. So I'm not, yes, we can talk higher purpose as well. And we can also talk more grounded purpose, like why am I calling this meeting right now? Like why are we calling this conversation right now? And who needs to be there? And then what is the type of the challenge that we are addressing right now? Because in a complex world and in a complex system, as most of our organizations are, not every challenge is a complex challenge.
Exactly.
And this is also a question that is sometimes asked, like, have you ever overcomplicated things? So start with I go back to your question, start with the question, why am I calling this meeting? And what kind of an issue are we facing here? And then this is going to direct your further intentions around it. And then think about the conversation as a process. Learn ways how to design a conversation and acquire skills to facilitate the conversation in many different ways. So in ways that is going to support humans as they are, to show up and to listen, but it is going to also support them to listen together. So how are you going to record what you are listening for, what you are hearing? So plan not just for speaking, but plan for listening. Plan for harvesting. We love this word, like harvest your meetings. Like we want our meetings to bring us some fruits that are going to feed our next steps, and they are going to become, like results of our organization. So think about every conversation as an effort of seeding and nurturing and maybe harvesting. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to highlight a lot of seeding, nurturing, and harvesting. That's a beautiful new language. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And we love that language because in this metaphor, harvest, we use this word in our relationship with nature. Okay. So this is where this word belongs. And organizations are living systems. Okay. Organizations are living systems, and complexity, there is the best place to learn about complexity is nature. I mean, we are part of nature, So, this reality, like the worldview that invites you into space when you think about an organization as a living system, and you learn from nature and you bring these principles into your relationship with your organization and into your relationship with all of these tangible, like technology, processes, stuff. But you come this worldview and you see that everything that we are creating is not a controllable, like machine that we are proposing, but we are producing, but it's actually an emerging new reality that we are creating together is something that I love. So the language of nature and the language of seeding and nurturing and harvesting comes from this space, from the knowing that organizations are living systems and connection with everything that nature can teach us about what that means.
Exactly. They are living system. And the more they begin this consciousness that organizations are living system, the ecosystem, and the more we have create the parallels through the nature back into organization, it's something really beautiful to consider and to be inspired with. And what would you say to people who are saying, well, this is absolutely beautiful what you're sharing about the collaboration, specifically about seeding, nurturing, and harvesting, and creating intentional conversations when we understand the purpose, we understand the type of the challenge, so we're quite deliberate in our meetings. So we all love, to participate in conversations that we call meetings that have specific, wonderful outcome, when we all feel good as a result of being there, instead of feeling lost or feeling like this is abruptly ended or we never discuss anything and people are dominating conversations. So how do you create that space when people have enough presence? I would call it presence, not time, presence, to be able to run those intentional meetings and intentional conversations instead of being rushed. Because I think that where people are struggling right now is that there's so much pressure with complexity and the speed. So people just jump into conversations, they jump into meetings, they do things quickly, they don't have mindfulness, they don't think about it, they just go ba 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 and then move on. So there's always this pressure, stress, dynamism, so it stifles our ability to do this. So what do we say to the leaders and to the people who are listening to this? What is our way into it? To manage the current reality, but then create the container to be able to have those conversations.
Dare to slow down. Sometimes, sometimes you need to stop to walk faster. And now I'm trying to remember who was the person, where did I read this sentence, who told it to me. It was one of my mentors that when I said I don't have time to slow down, and then he asked me you have time to not have time to deal with this in a way that's going to make a difference. So
I love that. I love it.
So, first thing is literally dare to slow down. You don't have time to not have time. Okay, to create spaces for us to see better and to see more. So this is the first thing, and this is change your relationship with complexity and with the idea of what does it mean, to work through this world as it is. So this is one thing. Then understand, be curious and learn about human nature. Learn a little bit about what do we need in order to be present, in order to speak up, in order to listen with intention, to be curious about human nature. And I mean, we talk a lot about this in leadership trainings today, importance of emotional intelligence, loads of these one-to-one skills, how do you empower people to step into their power, to speak up, to share what they see and know. And there is more. It's, this is like the one-to-one skill, know how to inspire one person, but then there is the one-to-many skill, learn about collaboration dynamics. Learn about what do we need and what kind of environment and what kind of relationship in order to step up and have a productive conversation. So dare to slow down, be curious about human nature, learn a little bit about one-to-one and one-to-many conversations, and then learn skills and techniques of designing the conversation as a process. So, learn facilitation skills. Shift your understanding of your role as a leader. A big part of your job is to be a facilitator. And there is a huge discipline out there with lots of tools and ways, so embrace facilitation skills as a core competence in your leadership.
So if you were to give a crash course to people who are impatient, just a few things around designing conversation process through facilitation. So what are in your opinion, the key facilitation skills that people can learn to be able to design this process? Just highlight them. You don't need to unpack them fully, but just...
I would say one thing to understand about human conversations, and we all don't know that. So one is facilitating arrival, then holding the space for the messiness of whatever the purpose of the conversation is, and then facilitating convergence, facilitating endings. And maybe, I don't know if it's oversimplification, but imagine when you are running into a meeting, most of the time you are physically there, but you are not yet there. You are in the previous meeting, or you are in the traffic, or you are, all over the places. So the first step, and we never do that, we jump from one meeting into another, and we kind of, start with the assumption you are there just because you're physically there. Mm-hmm. So facilitate arrival. Help people find ways. There are many different ways, but help people really arrive. Really arrive and set the intention, for whatever is going to happen in that meeting. And it starts with the way they are invited, how you invite, and then facilitate arrival, start with a clear intention. So, clear purpose is more important than an agenda.
Yeah, and usually we make that mistake that we work on the agenda, but we don't work on the purpose. We take...
Kind of meeting with a purpose and no agenda, and you ask this beautiful question, what do we need to talk about to arrive where we need to arrive, So facilitate arrival, help people arrive, connect to the intention, and then know a little bit about, depending on what the purpose of the conversation is, how to design it. If it's a brainstorming, it's going to be a different meeting than if it's a decision-making meeting. If it's sharing information is not the same as discussing reflection, so be clear of what needs to happen there and have some tools and ways, and then facilitate convergence. Know where you are. Maybe you arrive and you reach the purpose, maybe you didn't. But just converge into a clear understanding where you are. Like on the road, I start from Zagreb to Belgrade, and actually I arrived, halfway, not full way, but know where you are. So facilitate convergence and know what you harvested. So that is going to inform your next step.
Beautiful. Such a practical and beautiful and simple tool in a way that none of us use. Okay. Some of us.
I can't tell how many times I find myself in conversations, actually, people, after a nice conversation and a nice training, and people say, actually, we all know this. Everything that we talked about is common sense. You know this. But for some, beautiful human reason, we forget it. And
I know, but that's the next thing that I want to ask you, because you mentioned now we have this tool, but you also mentioned part of the things that you will help you, it's to be curious about human nature. So what is that in the human nature that people need to be more curious about and learn in order to be able to be better facilitators or better collaborators? And, one of the things of the human nature that I know about, we all know this, but we forget, right? So there's a level of forgetfulness. When we get too busy and too pushed through our work environment, then the things that we know, they fade away, and then we just show up with this inertia. So one of the things that I know about human nature is to take the break, to really remember that. To remember, oh my God, we had meetings at 5 o'clock, or 4. We had full day of meetings. People are arriving already charged up, already overstimulated, already too much information. What do I need to do as a leader who is facilitating this conversation to get them present and to get them really, to arrive in a good way? So we know that, but we forget. So that's one of the part of human nature, forgetfulness. What else do you think it's part of the human nature that we have to remember?
You want an academic answer or?
whatever flows from you.
No, because the first thing that came to my mind is, like how messy we are and how needy we are and selfish. And I mean this in a good way, like I am the center of my own universe and we arrive into every conversation. So we are beings that, of course, we want to serve and we want to contribute, and this need for contribution and need for service is really important. But that we also do because we want to believe that we are good humans, So in a way, it's really like understanding how messy we are and understanding that it's really important to give people reasons to connect with the topic and understand that if I can find my own personal connection to whatever is, like at the center of conversation, I'm going to show up most likely with all of my heart, like with full contribution and with full dedication and commitment. So, just this and allow me to show up in my most authentic way and help me understand why is my contribution important. So make it a little bit about me.
And I love that you mentioned that we are a kind of work in progress, that we're not perfect, we're a little bit messy. That's part of your human nature. We have insecurities, we have needs. Because sometimes I'm sitting in the meetings when people show up as the big personalities and they have this need to dominate the conversation and to say things and to be respected and loved and appreciated, to be acknowledged. When some of the people in collaboration would just sit aside and be very, very quiet and be, not heard and seen, and then, we get the loud ones to talk and the quiet ones to be quiet. So that is the disbalance of the diversity that is necessary for these quality conversations to happen. So I think it's also part of the understanding, how do you manage these personalities and how do you manage these different egos within the environment?
Yeah, and first thing that as we started talking about this, there is one little voice in me that says there is no such thing as a difficult participant or a difficult person, and of course they are if you perceive them as that. But one thing is, if that happens, knowing how to address that, so working with difficult, let's say, dynamics in the room. And because we talk about, being intentional in designing our conversations, you can hack opportunities for this to happen by good design. Like if you plan for the conversation, if you plan a process that is going to allow people, it's going to allow and help people to have a conversation in a certain way. If you contract for certain principles, if how are we going to show up in this conversation, and if hold people accountable to these principles and these values, it's much, much, much less likely that these difficult dynamics are going to arise. They do happen, but they happen because we are not designing for a different kind of conversation.
I got it. We're not designing. And once when we design it, we take time, then, we will preempt all of that going forward. I've decided I'm going to invite you to all my collaborational meetings and all my meetings in general.
There is one more thing I wanted to say, don't forget our need for fun, okay? So that's all part of it.
Yeah, because, meetings, if they're not fun, if they're too serious, people don't get creative and they don't make right decisions. So they don't step into the space of brainstorming, or they don't explore enough, through the whole collaboration process. But I've decided, you are the one who I'm going to take into all my meetings from now on. I hope everybody who is listening will understand that Adriana needs to be taken to all the meetings and collaboration endeavors, because she knows how to facilitate.
Yeah, thank you for that. And same time, the passion that brought me into this conversation is actually awakening leaders around the world. That brought me into this conversation is actually awakening leaders around the world. Yes, sometimes you need Adrianas and Zorans and like people outside of your room or outside of your immediate circle to help you navigate your conversations and navigate the complexity of your organizational dynamics. So yes, sometimes you are going to invite maybe me, maybe somebody else. But I think the invitation behind this conversation, the wake-up call that I would like to kind of resonate with you, the curiosity that my personal passion is around and my personal intention in this conversation is become curious about how much more potential can you awaken in your conversations, in your everyday meetings? What if you have the tools and the ways to design your meetings, like in a different way? So there are situations when it is the best to call somebody else to facilitate your meetings because your personal stakes and your personal relationship with the issue is going to make it really difficult for you to create space for a good sense-making process, for a detached observation together, for a good collaborative process, because navigating complexity is about looking for new, not for what we already know. So sometimes you're going to invite for help, but more than that, I want you to think about what facilitation skills can do for you. How could you, by different kind of invitation and facilitating, just allowing for 2 minutes of check-in time for people to really connect with what they are there, and making sure that you converge your meeting with a, with the fruit, with a clear harvest, that could make a bigger difference.
Absolutely. And I think that's the power, that's the passion, to empower people with the skills, tools, and abilities to do exactly that, and to become mindful around the importance of it. Because I think sometimes we think that we're good with that, and some people are extremely gifted and talented. They have this innate sense of facilitation. They know how to navigate the room. They know how to, create collaborations that are really powerful. But sometimes, we end up being a leader, being an employee or project leader or team leader. It doesn't really matter what do you lead when we simply need to learn the tools to be able to be effective. And once when you learn the tools and you begin practicing them, like the small tool that you have highlighted for us today for collaboration, to navigating complexities, it's important enough. And there is much more to come, And I always remember in our organization, when we talked about, living our values from inside out, we teach people what to do, but we were extremely chaotic in our meetings and our collaborative endeavors. And then David Papa, who joined our team, I remember first time he came to team meeting, he opened up the team meeting and he asked people, "And how are you arriving?" And we were all quiet. We didn't know what to say because we were like, what, how are we arriving? And we're like, what do you mean how are we arriving? That's, how do you feel? How are you arriving? What happened before? Where are you emotionally, spiritually, physically? Are you tired? Do you feel tense? Do you feel overstimulated? How are you arriving? And I remember that it was such an amazing opener for us to really center and presence ourselves. Then, the intention was, okay, now, how do we want to proceed? How do we need to recalibrate our thoughts, feelings, and emotions? To be able to proceed well with this meeting. So small hacks like that, Adriana, right? They create a lot of impact for collaboration in the future.
Absolutely. So much that I could say,
Yeah, I know. And and now we're close to the end of our podcast. So where I would love us to go next is, what is your call for action? So think about the audience. Thank you so much, first of all, for sharing all of this. There is so much wealth and abundance of knowledge and information. And I really hope that people for listening to Adriana and myself, they're going to reach out to Adriana and really get knowledge transfer, wisdom, and deep empowerment that she offers for the collaboration, for the meeting facilitation, and also for navigating this through complexity of our life. So, Adriana, through that, how would you like to leave our audience with anything that you feel will be good for you to share, to close, or any call for action that you might have for the audience, anything that you would love them to consider, anything that you can say, you must do this as a result of listening to this conversation? What will be something that you would love to share to wrap?
We started this conversation and the topic is navigating complexity. And for me, like, really start to think about the conversation as a tool and become more curious and more mindful about your conversations. And maybe make an experiment, like for the next week or for the next month, instead of agenda, start your meeting with declaring a purpose. And allow 2 minutes to breathe, and then allow 2 minutes at the beginning, and then allow 2 minutes to breathe at the end of the meeting, and close it intentionally with an awareness of where you are, so where you started and where you are, and see where that happens. And
experiment.
Experiment first, of course, and now Google and find ways to learn facilitation skills.
Yeah. They're super important. That was such a wonderful call for action. Thank you so much for coming to TNM Unplugged. Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in and listening. And I hope this was beneficial and valuable to you, inspiring you to think about the beauty of collaboration, the amazing ways how we can facilitate and run our meetings, and how this in turn can help us navigate what we call complexity in our world. Once again, Adriana, thank you so much. And everybody else, thank you for tuning in. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.